me.
Yes, we can.
Happy Africa Day. Yeah, very
Oh,
interesting discussion.
thank
Um,
you.
yeah, I've just been thinking here that I think maybe sometimes I think what we do as Africans, I think we don't go for low hanging fruits. And I think instead of coming up with all these big ideas that okay, one Africa, one president, and all those kind of things, how about just start with the basics? Let's connect a railway from South Africa to Zimbabwe to Mozambique, connect the region, you know, open up the highways, just little things like that, that over time they add up and they open up spaces for people to also be able to integrate and to also be able to move freely. And I think sometimes I think what African leaders have learned over the years is that if they keep on selling us this pie in the sky, we'll always be looking up for them, looking up looking up for this pie to come one day, whereas they're not doing anything in the meantime. You look at the
Mm,
same thing in Zimbabwe, people will be talking about the British, you're talking about the land and all those kind of things. But how about starting to take the state-owned land, give it to the people, let people farm? Same thing with South Africa. Almost 30 years into democracy, the land has not even been distributed, and it still need to happen. Why is it not happening? Because the guys are not they're more interested in power than in really empowering people, you know.
mm,
Because if you really look in the region how the former liberation movements do things, the pattern is the same. They act as if they are our parents. It's like they don't trust us. It's like we're this. It's like for them we're like kids.
wow.
We're like kids. They don't see us as adults. We can't make our own decisions. We don't know what we want. They know what we want. And I think that's the reason why our youth are suffering today, because
Mm.
what they want and what their so-called parents want is two different things. Their parents
It's
want
two
power.
different things. Yes.
Yes, the parents want power no matter what, even if it means starving you or killing you. And the youth are saying, hey, why can't we be like the other continents in the world? Because
Mm.
if you really look at the Chinese suffered the same thing that we had in Africa. They were also colonized. They were also
Yes.
killed. They also suffered. you know. But instead of being angry and waiting for somebody to say, I'm sorry, they focus on themselves and they say, no, let's rebuild. Yes, we've been treated unfairly, but let's focus on ourselves and build. For us, it's like we still have this anger towards Europe. And the reality is, nobody's going to say sorry to us. We just need to move on.
Hmm.
Nobody's going to say sorry. It's like you're fighting. It's like you're waiting for that boyfriend, that girlfriend that left you for somebody else to say sorry before you can move on. And we need to start thinking differently that, we really need to move forward. If we are really going to change the condition of the youth in the region or in Africa, you look at most of our presidents in the region, I mean, almost in the whole of Africa, you got all these old people who have no vision for the future.
Yeah.
We are living in a what new industrial revolution. They have no idea what's happening. You see other countries, the countries in the East, you see South Korea, like they say, what South Korea, way back in the 70s. They were even
Mm.
borrowing money from Africa. But look where they are today. So for us, even in the next 10, 20 years, my fear is we might find ourselves in the next 10 or 20 years, we might find ourselves in the same position where we are colonized in some way or the other, either by the Chinese or by whoever is more powerful. Because to start with,
Mm.
if we have all these minerals that we always brag about, but we don't have the army to protect it, we don't have the army to protect it. So we can shout as much as we want. Like today, we say, no, we don't want the French, whatever they must go. If they say no, what are we going to do? There's nothing we can do. We cannot defeat
Mm.
the French. If they say they don't want to go, there's nothing we can do. So that's what I'm saying. We are focusing on the wrong things. Start with the little small things. Let's have maybe like some sort of like a regional plan. Okay, guys, this is what we need to do. Let's invest in education for the next 2, 3 years.
Um,
Let's invest in IT for the next 2 to 3. That's what we need to do. We need to have plans that even a 5-year-old or a 6-year-old in primary school, they must know what the country is pushing towards.
yeah,
You know,
it's true.
yeah. So that's my 5 cents for the day.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Magufuli, you still there? What do you say?
You want to say something? My fault. Okay, what I was saying is, I think brother and sister from Zimbabwe, I think they can learn from South Africa, especially as far as they have to be fearful, like fearless. I mean, fearsome. I think that's something that I learned from a lot of my brothers and sisters from South Africa. If they want something, they go for it. Like they're ready to lose their life for whatever they want.
Mm.
It just as far as I learned from them. I think
Mm.
if brothers and sisters from Zimbabwe they can take that model and use it. Okay, because let me tell you something, right? If let's say, for example, when you go to school, like when you're young, somebody bully you every day. If you let that person every day come and punch you like, yo, doom on your face, say, oh, I'm gonna tell my mom, and then tomorrow punch you. But if one day you stand,
Mm.
that can it can't happen every day. Once
Okay,
you
so in
stand,
other words, are we agreeing here that, mainly the solutions should be country by country or as a region? That was my question, because
okay, so okay. For example, the region can give a support, but also Zimbabwe they have to do something because, like, let's say for example, South Africa trying to help. Let's say I'm just saying, let's say South African brother and sister they want to support. Malawi brother they want to support, but a brother from Zimbabwe and sister they fear. I mean, it
mm,
can never happen. That can never happen.
I understand. But
But
what could be contributing factor to this fear compared to South Africa, compared to other what could be that contributing factor? What is it?
I think, as far as my observation, and I've seen a lot of example. Most of the government they will show example because, like, Zimbabwe government they use soldiers sometimes, and they can even kill some of the people. I remember there was one of the guys. I think it was in England, and I spent time with him sometime. He went back to Zimbabwe, so he was like a new in that village. So what they do, they almost execute him because they say he came with a new agenda and all those sort of things because he used to have that revolutionary mindset. So they had like a little meeting. So what they did, they make him disappear
Mm,
for some time. So the Zimbabwe government, I think they kind of use the dictator type of system, and it's very bad because like we come from the colonial system, and now our own people treat us like so bad. But how
mm.
that can stop? Because it can't just stop itself.
Wow.
And it's not only Zimbabwe, a lot of countries this stuff happen. But my question, why is not happening in South Africa? Because it didn't just happen in South Africa like that. Because if you take back 1990, during the apartheid, right? I'm not much historian, but I can take a little back according to my own thinking process, my knowledge, what I've learned about apartheid and stuff.
Mm,
There was a lot of apartheid going on, you know, in that time. But people stood up. They fought for it.
mm. It's true. It's
So I
true.
think the solution for brothers, like he has to, people must die. Like that change of those old people to continue to oppress brothers and sisters from Zimbabwe, how it's going to stop? People must sacrifice. And when people sacrifice, other people must support them. Because if Zeke, let's say, oh, let's say I'm from Zimbabwe, and then I say, you know what? Let me stand for my brother and sister. But now you let me die alone. You see, that's a problem now. So change cannot come because what they do, they show one example, like, okay, look, we're gonna use Magufuli Bitcoin. Let's execute him. When they execute me, let's say, but I can be here and give support to my brother and sister from Zimbabwe. By any means, like in the social media, yo, Magufuli Bitcoin, we're gonna be here, we're gonna have whatever. I can raise my voice because nobody can do nothing for me. They cannot cage me. They can't. I can even show my face, whatever, because I'm not from there. But
Mm,
then and sister from Zimbabwe, they must do something for themselves. So if they execute, let's say me, I'm just let's say I'm from Zimbabwe, then people should not back off. They must go and keep fighting, and then they cannot kill everybody. They cannot kill all of us here. They cannot kill Ray,
mm.
Simon, Malema, and Zeke and everybody here. No, that can never continue.
Wow.
So some of people that must be gone. I'm ready to go. They can kill me. So our brother and sister from Zimbabwe can be liberated.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's it's let me hear what who's in there. Malema, what do you think about Magufuli's contribution?
Uh, okay, thank you, Ziki. I think, yeah, I agree with Makafule, because I think, to be honest with you, Zimbabweans themselves, they must take a lead. You know, I think it's not only happening in South Africa. I mean, not so long ago. I mean, last week, recently in Zambia, in Namibia, for example, the youth there, they had to stand. You know, I think the problem here, and I understand. I think Shingi once, in this conversation, he said, when you are living in a different country, sometimes you don't really understand. But if you've been to Zimbabwe, somehow, I've been to Zimbabwe myself. I understand why sometimes it's sort of like a difficult thing to fight against the government, but I feel like the voices, even if they are from outside, as long as there's a pressure from outside, I mean the diaspora as well. Like for example, in South Africa, in before '94, I mean people from UK, people from even the South African diaspora, the Miriam Makeba, all those people, they were shouting. So they were saying there is a problem in South Africa, and then that led to so much pressure into that government ended up giving up their power. So, and I'm saying this thing because I think the Zimbabweans as well, they must also shout, and not only Zimbabweans, because I don't think the Zimbabweans alone can win the fight. I feel like everyone else, as the SADC region and everyone else, UK, whatever, we must shout. Everywhere where you get the platform as Zimbabweans, you must always say, in Zimbabwe, there is a problem, because you must understand that general people, somewhere, somehow, they don't really, like, they forget. They forget that what is happening in Zimbabwe, because there's nothing that is saying, that is alarming people, that says no, Zimbabwe there is a problem. It only happens whenever maybe there's xenophobia in South Africa or wherever. That's when people start to rise and say, hey, no, Zimbabwe this. But when things are sort of like normal, you guys don't raise your voices. And then I'm saying these things because this is how we can win, or this is how you can win. And to say we are fighting, you can even in China, for example, you find that there is where you are, Ziki, you find that there is a diaspora of Zimbabweans. You can also go to what you call, to the embassy and cry there. South Africans, there are so many Zimbabweans, they can go to the embassies and cry there and fight there and march there and say, hey, Zimbabweans, or whatever. These things, and if you remember how Morgan Chagarai used to fight, it used to be all over the news. People used to say, but in Zimbabwe there is a problem, because Shangarai was fighting. And we see even Chamisa is sort of like a fighting, but where is the rest of Zimbabweans to fight this thing? Where is the, because Zimbabweans, you find Zimbabweans being very, very, very vocal when it comes to the South African affairs, for example. Hey, we also need to be, but why don't you have the same spirit when it comes to Zimbabwe? Because I mean, me myself, I'm a South African, but I feel pain when I go to Zimbabwe. I feel pain, me knowing how Zimbabwe used to be in the 80s, and then how I see Zimbabwe today. It's something painful. And I'm saying these things because we as Africans, we really need to. I know each and every country has got its own problems, like South Africa, whatever, everything, we understand it. But at this very same time, we also need to raise these issues. In DRC, if you've been to DRC, anyone who have been to DRC, you will cry. Because this thing is not a matter of, hey, I'm Zimbabwean and I'm this. Just by looking at what the situation is and what the situation are, it's very painful. It's very, very painful. And this thing is the situation where I'm saying that if we want to have a solution, the people must rise. The youth must rise. And then rising doesn't mean we need to go and ban things. No, you can rise and make the government ungovernable. Stop, like the in South Africa, for example, what do you call it? In Zimbabwe, in Zimbabwe, in South Africa, there are so many Zimbabweans. Why can't they go to the border and just stop a border for 10 hours or for a day and say no, enough is enough? This is our situation, and stop those things, so that, because that's how you win these things. Because if you're going to win, fight for a job in South Africa and whatever, you will always fight with it. Or you can go to Botswana, you'll always have the very same results. Of people will say you'll fight. The xenophobic will never end. But if you want the solution in Zimbabwe, for example, you need to stand up. Go to those embassies. Those people that they are not working for Zimbabweans, they are working for their pockets. So if you make them ungovernable and make it out there, if you go wherever, there are people, Zimbabweans that have got power. They can go to the UN and say Zimbabweans are suffering. Go those things, make a campaign and say we end. It's over with Mnangagwa or whatever. And this thing has got nothing to do with politics of saying, because you hear some Zimbabweans, they get emotional whenever you start to sort of like try and discuss these things. They will say, no, hey, Mugabe, this thing, it's always, but it is never, an ordinary Zimbabwean is suffering out there. If you go to Bulawayo, it's painful. It's very, very painful to if you were there in the 80s and you were there, you will understand. Zimbabwe, it's a failed state. I'm sorry to say this thing, but Zimbabwe is a failed state. And this is very painful. And this is what is happening in South Africa, for example. And then that is why you see people must rise. You must not be afraid if you want to liberate, if you want to make change, you want to bring change in Zimbabwe, if you want to bring change in Africa, you need to rise. The youth must rise, and you must not be afraid and ashamed. And go out there, go to BBC or wherever where you get the platform, and embarrass those leaders. So that now the world, it becomes attention that no, in Zimbabwe there is a problem. People will start to say in Zimbabwe there is a problem, and then that's when you can win these things, because we have seen the suffering of Changarai, and we can even go back as Joshua Nkomo, all those people, Banana, that guy, Banana, whatever, I forgot his name. Yes. It's a suffering that these people and we're talking about powerful people. What about the ordinary people? Because those powerful people, they were beaten. Shangarai was beaten like a kid. Was beaten. His wife was killed. Whatever, because they were powerful. They've got money. Those people. What about the normal Zimbabweans? Do you think how are they going to win these things? We need to be practical in a sense that we need to have a solution. Because if you keep on saying, no, but Zimbabweans must, we have seen Zimbabweans fighting these things, but there's no solution. And then we are saying that we have realized that even the leaders in South Africa, for example, they are not doing anything for you. Because, I mean, in 2008, if you remember what happened to Thabo Mbeki, the so-called our savior, or our best president in South Africa, he went to Zimbabwe during those disputes between Changarai and Mugabe. He went there, and everything else he said Zimbabweans are fine, everything is fine. And what I'm saying is that even the leaders themselves, the presidents, or even if you go to Swaziland or wherever, those presidents, they are not helping Zimbabweans. So, but the Zimbabweans themselves, and then also us as South Africans, us as Botswana, us as Basotho, us as SADC, us.
Interesting. Shingi, what do you say?
Oh, it's a lot to digest. It's a lot to take in.
Are you agreeing that we don't have the fighting spirit, or we've just given up?
Wow, I don't know, because like I said, I put myself as one of those people, is it like the way Malema is saying is the truth, because we all chicken away. We all had to catch that flight and run away. And,
True.
because nobody was even prepared to say, oh, let me stand up. But there are few, like I said, who have done, that time of the coup and whatever. I think there was children who did try to protest or whatever. And you know what the ZANU-PF does? They give repression to people. They send soldiers, and those children were shot. I think some of them were from Chitungwiza, and they died. So what they do is, which is different, because when people protest, for instance, like in South Africa, it's very rare that you see the government, unleashing soldiers. It's very rare. But in Zimbabwe, it's like a military state. So it started, during the time of Robert Mugabe, and even now, it's still the same. So I think, I don't know, like, I get where people are coming from to say, people the youth needs to be bold. But who's going to start? Who is going to be on the front? Who's going to start this uprising? That is where the point is. But, well, he spoke about Miriam Makeba. So we can say, CK, you are one of the Miriam Makebas anyway, because already you are starting a platform where, because you are doing a social media thing, which is seen all over the world. The entire whole world is watching you, and is listening to everybody's opinions. And, people are coming, and some who are from all different parts of the continent, some whom we don't know, but people have got a concern. And it's true, it's up to the people to find the common denominator. It's up to the people of Zimbabwe to find a way on how best people can free themselves. Other people can come and assist, but it has to start as well within people. I know there's a time people always blame the ANC, but we have seen that the ANC, they are not interested. They are like a sister party to ZANU-PF. They've got a best interest for ZANU-PF because of their political affiliations. So it's just one of those things. And I do agree with what Mr. Malema is saying. It is true. It's so devastating. Like what he's saying, that he visited. I had one of my aunties, she said to me, Shingi, when I first went to Zimbabwe, that was, I think she said it was in the 80s or something. She says it was the first time I saw a country that looked like Europe. She says when we were coming from South Africa she said it was so beautiful. Auntie Nombulelo said, she said, I had never walked into a city that looked like somewhere in Europe. But this is the Zimbabwe, that this guy is saying when he went in the 80s, he saw something. But if you go now, it's like you've arrived in a very different world altogether. It's like a ghost town. Some of those beautiful places, they are gone, CK. I'm sorry to say that. And now this is sometimes where people think, like, if we start to maybe to do like a violent thing, what will be left of Zimbabwe anyway? Because it's already something that is already decayed in terms of infrastructure wise. I know some people are building those houses and whatever, like the diaspora, but if you go there are no roads anyway. No one is maintaining anything. You find those beautiful, beautiful houses, but there is no organization. So it's such a difficult situation. It's very interesting to listen to the people of the world and to listen to other Africans and see how they view our people and how they look at us. And it's always good to get, constructive criticism. And like this other brother Magaluf is saying, he wants also to help. Please help us and shout. If you can go to BBC, Mr. Magaluf, go and speak. CNN, if you want to go to United Nations, go and speak as well. We'll also try as well to speak over the social media like we are doing. We'll try in other platforms if we get the chance, especially here in the UK, to talk about it. Like I say, most people tend to think about themselves. They don't want to talk about anything. People think about themselves. And I think that is the other frustration that is bringing the South Africans, when they see a lot of influx of migrants coming from Zimbabwe, because they are thinking, all these people are coming. you know, and in South Africa has its own problems. People are struggling in South Africa. They don't have jobs. There is a lot of issues that South Africa is also facing. You
It's true.
understand? And then you
Mm.
have these neighbors, children, who are always coming to look for food every day. It just becomes a burden, even if you love your neighbor. But it just becomes a burden, and you'll be thinking, what are the parents doing there? Why can't these children cry to their parents? So, like, there's another one who said, our leaders treat us like we are children. And it's true. They think they think they've got a best interest at heart for us, but some of their policies, they are old-fashioned. They are not practical in this modern day age. They are not at all. So, and it's not helping. We are all going round in circles, all round in circles, and nothing is
Mm.
changing for us.
Okay, let
That's
me
it.
just
Oh,
say,
okay.
okay, let me ask, then I'm going to give, is it Simon or wait,
Oh,
just,
yes.
okay, just a minute. So I just wanted to highlight this, guys. Like we have seen that um, since we're talking about SADC, in the beginning of the video, I outlined for you the problems country by country, okay, that I've been following, okay, in SADC. Like all of them, they all get back to the issue of unemployment on the youth, economic hardships, and all this kind of stuff, right? So I'm saying, what's the way forward? It so seems that each and every country has got its own problems here, and the youth from these countries, they are suffering. Okay, Simon.
Zike, for me, I think the solution should be we shouldn't really focus on individual countries like Zimbabwe, what Zimbabwe need to do. I think what we need, what young people need to do, or what we need to do as Africans, we must put pressure on the African Union because you cannot have a continental body that has no power and also that has a constitution that we're not even familiar with. We cannot have, like you see with Europe, with the European Union. If you want to join the European Union, there's certain things that you need to fulfill in order to be part of the European Union. They're not going. They don't just take you because you are in Europe. And I think the problem with the African Union is that you have all these countries, different constitutions. Some are democratic, some are not. Some are dictators and everything, and they are all part of the African Union. We cannot have that. We need to have a guiding principle. We need to have a guiding document that says this is what we want for Africa. If you are going to be part of the African Union, these are the basic fundamentals of human rights that every country must follow. When it comes to elections, we don't want a situation where in Zimbabwe people vote every year and then the same party wins all the time, whether they lose or not. They always comes up tops. We need to have a constitution, African Union constitution that is clear. And I think if we can address our anger towards the African Union, because African Union is being paid by taxpayers' money. I mean, obviously the Chinese are involved in everybody, but we need to push them to say, no, we cannot have Zimbabwe as part of the African Union if they're not democratic. We cannot have them as part of the African Union if they don't respect human rights. So we need to start demanding things like that. To say, even if it means that we might end up maybe with an African Union with only 10, 20 members. But I think we really need to be very strict of what exactly we want to do in the African Union. Because now we can talk about issues of jobs and everything. The problem with the issue of jobs, the way I see it in South Africa, especially also in Zimbabwe, I think land has impoverished people because you can have the best job and everything, but when the economy is struggling, if you don't really have access to land, you will also struggle. And I think one thing that I think we need to do, and we also need to push for, is for people to have access to land. The land that the government owns, you need to start releasing some of those land, even if you maybe are leasing it to people, even some of these young people that are roaming around using drugs and everything. Farming is not a complicated thing. People try and make it like as if it's like this weird science that you have to go to school to do. Our grandparents have been farming for thousands of years without any of this education. So let's try and make sure that let's make space, let's give land to people so that those who do not have jobs, they can at least be productive, so that we can also grow local economies. But yeah, for me, in conclusion, I think we must focus on the African Union. Yeah,
But the issue, okay, let me ask you about the issue of land.
yeah.
When you talk about the issue of giving land to the youth, so that they can
Hmm.
use land and everything. But let's look at what happened in Zimbabwe, right?
Yeah.
The land was taken and was given to people to do to farm, but still now we
Yeah.
are seeing Zimbabwe right now as I speak, there's food crisis, prices are very high, people have been encouraged to import food from outside,
Mm.
sugar, mealie meal, flour, you understand? But yet they were given land. So can land be the solution?
But you see what the problem is? The land redistribution in Zimbabwe, it was not done to distribute land to people. It was done as a political tool. So if you do something as a to gain political mileage, it doesn't necessarily mean that you actually want to empower people. But if it was done properly to empower Zimbabweans, it could have been a long-term plan, maybe like having like a 3-4 year plan where you give people land, you're training them, you are giving them access to finances, or giving them even access to equipment. Because I mean, if you have a big farm, you obviously need a lot of equipment. But if you look at South Africa and Zimbabwe, they're not doing that. Then which means that for them, land